Let's chill out and just make something cool in Power BI today. First off, we have the stacked bar chart. So let's click that. And we have this row here. Let's see, we have discounts, which has a bar. Let's see what our gross sales with discounts are. As you can see, we get a stacked bar chart that shows our sum of discounts and our sum of gross sales. Pretty cool. You also can create another chart that's very similar. In Power BI, one of the things you can do is you can click these different ones to get different visuals. So as you can see, the stack bar chart was horizontal with the colors. You can also go in and click this, such as stacked column chart, which will show you the columns. You can go over here and click clustered bar chart, which isn't really recommended, but still you can see kind of how it looks. And if you grab the bottom right-hand corner here, you can see how it will go over and you can get a larger view. Now in this situation, you may want to have multiple views on the dashboard and you want to have it located here, but you can see how easy it is. It also gives you this red dotted line that kind of tells you different things. If you're trying to align those objects up, you can use those. So here we have this stacked bar chart here. We also have a clustered column chart, and this right here looks pretty cool, right? On the cluster, you can see sum of sales, sum of discounts. So two different things, and then you can go in here and click different things if you wanted to have them in there. But right now, we're just going to leave it at that for this view. We have a 100% stack bar chart, very similar to this one. Actually, it's the same right now. So you can see, as of right now, it's the same, but the difference is you have the percentages here at the bottom of the 100% stack bar chart, whereas before you wouldn't have those percentages for that in particular. We also have another chart, the line chart. Now, you can see it looks like this. So what's wrong with this line chart? Well, we first need to access on the x-axis, which is right across this bottom here. So if we go over and we click date, we'll get that access, thus populating that line chart and creating a pretty cool chart. Here you could go for different categories, and you can see that Power BI is so intuitive that it'll give you the colors of those things, and you can find trends you maybe wouldn't be able to find otherwise. So it's kind of just a cool way to do that as we click here on the right at different things that you can do here within the Power BI ecosystem. And we want to take those away real quick, so I'm going to declick those. And let's just focus on gross sales. And we can see we have that there. So let's jump over to the area chart. Area chart is a cool thing, but the same thing here, you can see how discounts are going. When you have more discounts, are you getting more? Well, it actually does look like when we have a slightly higher discount during these months, we are getting a little bit more. Maybe there's a correlation, maybe there's not. If you're a data analyst, that's something you could definitely take a look at and take a deeper look at if you wanted to see something. Additionally, we have our stacked area chart, which is very similar, a very cool design. And they're always updating this in Power BI. So always be on the lookout for these different types of charts. They're going to be there at points in time. We also have a 100% stacked area chart, which, as you know, is very similar to that 100% stacked bar chart that we just saw. And we can see how it can go in and update that data very quickly. Additionally, we have a line and stacked column chart. This is a very neat visual, and I think this is something that can let you see trends. So if we wanted to see a trend, we could go right here under the analytics pane, do a y-axis trend. This is your y-axis on the left, and you can click this, add a line, and you can very quickly see the average, medium, mode, create a certain dash, and do different things here. We're not going to go into this on this video, but I did want to see you have the idea of the options that you have within these charts and the analytic capabilities on this tab right here. I really encourage you guys to explore it and do different things because it has a lot of stuff that you can do. So let's jump back over to our Add to Your Visual tab. You also have your Format Your Visual tab. You also have an Add Further Analysis to Your Visual tab. So keep in mind that different charts will have different things depending on the analytics capabilities. So you really have to keep that in mind in Power BI as you click through stuff. But it's really cool to kind of see those different designs It's something that lets you visualize your data differently. So I encourage you when you're doing an analysis, come in here, click through, see the different chart types, get an idea of your data, and that's just going to make you a better analyst when you're doing these things. So as you can see here, we have a line and cluster chart. Very cool. Got our months in here. We kind of see what those different categories are doing. A tooltip that pops up here for sum of discount. Just lets you see those trends in a different way. Now, we also have this ribbon chart. I like this chart. I don't know about you, but it's just a different cool way to view the data. This would be very challenging. I have Tableau experience. This would be very challenging to actually see in any other scenario. And right here, we can see this ribbon chart, which is a very neat structural design. We go over here, we can see the waterfall chart. This may not be the best way to see this, but the total, you see the total, I'd probably want to take that out personally, but I like how the waterfall kind of shows you different patterns, different things. And if you add different things, let's see what happens. This is what I really encourage you guys to do as you're clicking through. Click through different things, see how the chart updates, and I think you guys will be impressed with what Power BI can do there. So that's just another visual that we have within this ecosystem of this waterfall chart. This is something that would be on your Power BI test. If you do take this test, these charts, the 100% stack chart, do you know those, that they are differences between the 100% stack charts versus others, if you ever do take those. You will see the funnel test. The funnel test kind of is good for processes. So if you have 100%, this isn't the best way to do it, so we'd want to remove the date for sure here. This is more so I can see, okay, what is the different process here? How much is taking up what? None. Okay, so low. Typically it's used for processes, not in such situations like this, but you can see, okay, maybe we have a segment here. Which segment is the highest? We have government of the 100%. We have 46. One of the things it does do, if you have the tooltip on, it'll show those percentages, and then at the very end, it'll show more percentages. There are some different other things that you can do when you make this, so definitely check these options out as you're designing it under your format, your visual area within Power BI. You can also do some additional settings under these 3 buttons if you want to check that out. So right here, we have our funnel chart. Now we're going to take a look at a scatter chart. This is not a great thing, but if we go over here and we choose date, and see, is there anything correlated? Is there anything that we need to be looking at here potentially that's correlated across the board? And that's what these are really for. These can help find those situations that find those correlations depending on what you're looking at and what you're trying to measure. So you can do the size, update those. You can go over here, check some different analytics things, the min line, the median. Maybe you want to add an average line in there so you can see the average. You can kind of see some of the benefits of doing these different things with these charts and just really explore it. I really like the slider option. You can kind of zoom in on stuff. Maybe you don't want to look at something here. We got 2 sliders here, so you can kind of bring it over, and it gives you a nice little animation on the X and Y axis as you're looking through this stuff and trying to update stuff. So let's come back to our add to your visual area, and we can also see a pie chart. Everybody knows a pie chart. One of the things with pie charts, just don't get too many categories in here. This is probably pushing it right here on these segments, even though there's not that many segments, so maybe we can reduce some certain things here and make sure you're only using one measurement typically. But here you can see, okay, maybe I don't want to use this one. Let's use another category segment. See the categories, a little bit too much there in my opinion. Country, you're definitely probably not going to want to do unless there's like 5 countries. We really can't tell a difference there. So it really has to be something typically like 3 segments. I would say this is okay. It kind of tells you some stuff here of what is your biggest factor. Clearly we saw was government on the funnel chart earlier, but just something to kind of keep in mind. You want to do something that doesn't have a lot of categories. That's not going to blow up your chart basically. So it typically is a category. So you're going to want to choose something that's not aggregated here. Like discount band is one. That'd probably be a good one. not too many categories here that would help with that and putting that on your dashboard. This is very similar. We're just going to flip over to a donut chart, which you can kind of place numbers within the donut chart and do different things with that, which makes it pretty neat, honestly. This is very challenging to do in Tableau, by the way. Going in, updating those donut charts is not an easy task at all, but here we have it. We can get that updated very quickly. So if we look over here, we have a ton of other charts that are available within Power BI. The tree chart lets you see, okay, what is the highest very quickly. This is more along the lines of, oh, I have a ton of categories. It's not going to work for a pie chart. It's not going to work for a donut chart. No, we're going to go even further. So we're going to go over here and we are simply going to click a category that had a little bit more segment, a little bit different product maybe. I don't know how many's in this data set. Kind of see which is the biggest products. We don't have a lot in this set. Month name, which months are your number one sellers. That's kind of a cool one. Discount band, we knew what that was doing before. And country, if there's a lot of countries in there, you can do that. But there's not a lot of categories or stuff going on here. So it's kind of pointless, honestly. But this is a chart you can use if you have a ton of categories or you just want to look at like this. Of course, we have the map. So here we're going to have to use our geos. We see immediately it knows we got these dots on here for sales that show up immediately across the board of areas that have some gross sales. You can see that it just kind of plopped those on the map. So you would have to do a lot of updating here with those bubbles. It says it's auto scaling right now, but you would have to probably go in here. Maybe you want to make some updates to how this map's looking and things like that. So that just shows you kind of the sales are kind of evenly spread out between these countries because they're near the same size, those bubbles, right? So let's jump over to the filled map. That's going to give us a little bit more. Here we can see that North America, all these areas have cells. And yeah, that's basically it really. You can go maybe see discounts. Take a look there. So we're not really getting a lot out of this at this point in time. I will say go explore these map settings because there's some cool things that you can do with these map settings if you just take a look at them. You can have a zoom button, different things. You can go to general, look at some different effects. I'd really recommend you do that because you're going to find some cool effects that you're not going to necessarily be able to do anywhere else. Now, this is the kicker right now. These Azure maps are awesome. So we can't display it. Got to sign in. Just letting you know, make sure you check them out. Here we have these ribbons. This is more for, we go back and we do we have a certain thing we're trying to get to? Is it aggregated a certain way? The only thing I would say here is watch out because it kind of sometimes can distort values. You can see it goes to 127 million. Kind of hard to see what 255 million really means. So just know that it can cause confusion. Just make sure you use those the right way. But these gauge charts are they're pretty amazing. Additionally, you can go over here and just have it summed up for the gross sales. And then using the card chart, there's some other advanced charts down here, like a multi-row chart. And you can kind of see where you can keep adding stuff and it kind of just keeps going. There's some different things you can do with multi-row charts, like hiding stuff and doing things and only having stuff pop up in a certain situation. So I definitely would say check it out. We also have KPI charts. We're not going to go into that, but you can see how KPIs can kind of get in here. And you can look up different things, get the different KPIs and see, hey, are we hitting the goal of 22 million? Or, you can throw a ton of KPIs in there. But just something that allows you to quickly create KPIs, which is very challenging in programs like Tableau at times. So you can utilize those. Additionally, we have slicers. And yes, slicers is almost its own chart type, but just know that you can filter by certain things. You can additionally update the slicer settings using a vertical list. Maybe you want to have a tile to filter that map like before using drop downs. The only thing I will say with slicers, just make sure you check out these options here. Do you need to have a select all in that drop down menu? Additionally, one thing I learned is if you go over here on these three buttons, this will add a search bar to the slicer. That is not default. So now you can now search for different things, say, let's say Canada, for instance, or United States of America. You can search those. You'll want to activate that for the user experience. I have no idea why that's disabled by default, but it's just 3 little bars in the bottom right that let you use the search. Now, next we're going to jump over to a table view. This table view is really cool. It's just, think of it like an Excel table, but in Power BI. So we have countries, maybe we want to put some gross sales in there. We'll see the month. Very quick, column tables, very powerful. Familiar with that with Excel. Well, now you can see it all together, right? So that's kind of the neat thing about tables, is you can explore your data much easier if you prefer that route. Additionally, matrix tables, very similar. Just keep in mind they have some quirks to them when you're in there. Work with matrix. If you'd like to make R scripts, you can do that. See how it pops up there. You can put your scripts in there if you know the R language. Additionally, you can use Python. I've used it a few times and it does work. I recommend maybe using Copilot to get that off the ground and running, and then you can figure it out, put some Python in there. They're really good with visuals and customized visuals, such as using Seaborn and PyPlot to be able to create some stuff. This is the influencer. So I really am a fan of the key influencers for a lot of different reasons. The main thing I like about this is it really lets you look at your data very deeply. And we can't even do that right now. Let's try to get this slicer off there. So we're actually going to just go in and get rid of this potentially. Let's see if it works. Okay, it's not working right now. I do want to say that you need to use this. You need to mess around with the key influencers. It is so important to have this because it kind of gives you some data you wouldn't find otherwise. And it's very good at the analysis that it does. It's just not working right now. I have no idea why, but maybe someone in the comments can tell me. I've used this in my job. It works great. We also have a decompensation tree. This is very cool. So let's say sum of COGS, probably not the category we want to do, so we'll do gross sales. And then what we can do is we can add products, categories in there, discount banding, and maybe we want to find a trend. Well, it gives you the drop down of what you've selected. So maybe we want to see, okay, country, okay, what is the best product in the United States? And that just goes over, and then you can kind of just do that. Pretty cool, right? So it really gives you those cool options to see, hey, what's going on with my products, and also goes a little bit deeper depending on what you want to do at any given time here. So if you want to explore your data, decompensation trees are great. Additionally, you can create a narrative depending on what you have here. Question and answer. For instance, you want to say the average gross sales. It will search that using its little AI system, and there you go. You can search your data, and in fact, you can pin these as visuals, so make sure that you check that one out, because you can actually pin this so you never have to make that visual again and put it into your dashboard. So that's one of the great features. If you want to learn more, just go over here in this Q&A setup, and I'll give you a lot more info about how to work this and how to do this and things like that. Here we have a narrative. It's going to give you a little narrative. They also have a Copilot preview. Don't think that's going to work for me because I'm not signed in right now. But of course, who doesn't want to use Copilot, right? So that's going to help you out more if you have the ability to do that. It is starting to get really important as we see the Copilot sign is here. So let's jump over and get out of this one. Let's just start a new sheet here. So we were on, we're starting to get across the narrative to the goals. Goals, they have a lot of good stuff. The sign of the service, but pretty cool things. Paginated reports, that's where you kind of create some reports that are more printing off into PDFs and things like that. We have some new cards, kind of the same deal with cards, but they give you some more options to make it a little bit easier to kind of put stuff in there. So you can put multiple things in there, and it looks really nice. A button slicer, very similar. It's like they put the button slicer, whatever reason here, but you can kind of click it, do different things with it. I'll be honest with you, It's the same. It's very similar to the other slicer. It's just like they wanted people to find their button slicer, if you know what I mean. So we have this arches, something you can utilize. We have some things with power apps, which are very important. We can really do some great things with that. And then we have some power automate things that you can also do. So as you can see, it created a map very quickly using this gist system. It's kind of a cool way to see different things. I haven't used a lot of this, but I'm sure there's a lot you can do with this, so check it out. And then this stuff is in the Power App system, which is a complete different ecosystem that encapsulates Power BI. And the Power App system, highly recommend that because it can automate a lot of different stuff for you. I use some things with Power Automate at times. I've been checking out some Power Apps, and I really do like what it does. So here that you can see, that's a pretty big rundown of the visualizations within Power BI. I think you'll find that it's extremely helpful if you go out there and just explore these visualizations, throw some categories in here. I'm just using the default data set that comes with the free version of Power BI right now. So every one of you can go in there and do this right now. Check it out. I think you'll like it. Subscribe too. I guess they'd silly to ask that question. If this was helpful for you, I'll have some more videos out there on Power BI, analytics in general, and other things.